I'm Rob from Barefoot Gaming, and today I'll be reviewing not only the BeQuiet base 802, but I'll also be testing out their new all-in-one cooler, the PureLoop 360. Let's do this. This is not my first taste of what BeQuiet has to offer, and honestly, case reviews are all kinds of tough. Not because I don't find them cool, I do find them cool, but because it's really hard to translate in a video without just reading off boring specs. I don't want to read boring specs, I'm gonna try and keep this to the good stuff. And I'll give you the nitty-gritty, and in the end, you will get my final impressions. The specs will be listed. The 802, like all BeQuiet cases, is built for running quiet. Not only do they have a dense sound dampening insulation on the side panels and also the front, but they use a bunch of their funky bladed fans, the PureWing 2s, which if you haven't seen our other videos, I'd recommend checking out, as they are crazy quiet, as in can't tell if they're on quiet. So here's the thing with insulating a case for noise, it's going to get warmer. 802, however, does include an entirely new mesh front, so if you care less about sound and want airflow, this can just be pulled up and swapped out super easily, which also exposes an easy to access filter on the bottom and on the inside. Just keep in mind, the more you remove, the more likely you'll hear what's going on inside the case. Speaking of, it really feels like BeQuiet is trying to balance a fine line. They want their cases to be super silent, but they also want you to be able to show off your parts and maintain thermal performance with airflow. For example, they sell this case with a big window on the side, but of course glass doesn't insulate sound as well as their sound dampening panels. The case is built very well, and even with all the panels off, it feels incredibly sturdy. It also has a second dust filter, which I touched on. It can be easily removed in the front as a tray. There is lots of room for cable management. The plastic style feet rails that sit underneath the case keep it off of any potential carpet or any mild flooding situations perhaps, but the footing adds to the fairly large size as it sits about 22 by 11 by 22 inches, which is great if you've got a large motherboard or a large video card, as they'll all fit in this case, but it's a bit of a monster if you want this to sit on your desk. So let's talk about the guts for a moment. The insides, like their other cases, are super easy to get into, as in there are two buttons that you can press on the back and it releases the sides. They drop down and that's it. There's no screws. As you'd expect from a company named BeQuiet, all the drive mounts to rubber seals, so if they were to vibrate at all, they're totally dampened. How many hard drives does it hold? Well, this case comes with slots where you can mount 5 3.5-inch hard drive trays where they look like they float behind the motherboard over here. And it also has room for another 2 in the back behind the shroud. However, it only comes with the 1 tray. So you can mount 3 2.5-inch drives on the back of the motherboard tray, meaning out of the box, this holds 6 hard drives. And if you get those other pieces, it holds up to 10. I believe the technical term is a metric buttload of hard drives. They've also included 3 140mm PureWing 2 fans, and I should probably also note that the 802 comes in either white or black. And the only other thing I'll touch on is the 3-speed fan control on the top, as well as the multiple USB and sound ports where you'd expect. It also has room for every size cooler, and in fact, I installed the BeQuiet PureLoop 360 AIO cooler with room to spare in the top. For those of you that don't follow liquid cooling, the AIO, or all-in-one aspect of the liquid cooler, means there is one assembly. You clip the heatsink on the CPU or GPU, mount the radiator, and it requires no maintenance, as most cannot be refilled. It's a closed loop. Now, there is a caveat there, because closed loop liquid coolers are sealed coolers, but because water can evaporate through the tubing, some AIO coolers are built to be user refillable, and the PureLoop 360 does just that. They include extra liquid that you can top off in 2 years, for example, just to make sure it is working at peak efficiency. And this thing works like a mamma jamma, both in silence and in cooling. First, I'm not gonna pretend I've tried every liquid cooler out there. I have not, but I was very surprised to see the pump is built in line, as in it's just a tiny little pump that dangles between the radiator and the cooling block. It's just a few inches into the tubing from the rad. And when I first turned it on, I genuinely thought it wasn't working, as I could not hear it at all. I mean, I could hear the row of fans go on, and I immediately felt the pump with my fingers, and I could feel it doing its magic, but I was expecting some noise. Something. There wasn't. It was totally quiet. As far as the CPU compatibility, I'm not listing everything, but needless to say, it works with pretty much everything. What I am going to say is they base their recommendations on what size cooler to the CPU you want to run. For example, the company suggests that the 120mm version is suitable for use with the Intel Core i3 or the AMD Ryzen 3 or lower, the 240 with Intel Core i5 and the AMD Ryzen 5, and the 280 for the i5, i7, Ryzen 5 7, and the 360, which I'm running for the i7, i9, or the AMD Ryzen 7 9. To be clear, this also comes with their PureWings 2 fans, so the noise levels are negligible even on the rad, and dependent on the cooler size, this will determine how many fans you get, 1, 2, or 3, and all of the fans can be daisy-chained to each other. Now, if you are about the bling factor, this is not a RGB paradise. It does emit a white glow around the CPU block, but it's more elegant than Dance Club, and you have no selection in color. And to power the pump and light, there's a 3-pin fan header. That's it. Another feature of the Pure Loop that a less experienced user may find to be a limitation is the lack of any software fan speed control. The included PureWing 2 fans connect directly to the motherboard via 4-pin PWM headers, which means that fan speed is either controlled by the motherboard BIOS or by using the motherboard fan speed control software. Again, keeping this as a more simplified review, I can tell you that the AIO outperforms any of the air coolers I have ever tested. I didn't play around much with overclocking, okay, maybe just a little bit. I tested against the Noctua NH-D15, which is a massive air cooler that I had from a previous review, and it ran from 2 to 4 degrees cooler at stock. That difference increased with overclocking, but obviously mileage will vary on that front. My takeaway when all the dust settles is the 802 case is a solid case with good airflow and moderate quiet levels. You'd never know that it's got 6 fans and a compressor in the case, but it's not as quiet as some of the others that I've spent time with. I do, however, think it's a good balance between quiet and performance. The AIO cooler is amazing. I can't believe how quiet it is, and I personally love the slick look and clean space in the case. The Noctua I mentioned before takes up a crazy amount of room to only come close to delivering the same temperatures. I honestly don't have any negatives to say on the Pure Loop 360. They give you a 3-year warranty on the cooler, but maybe it gets louder over time. I don't know. I know right now it's crazy quiet. And I know that's it for the review. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you found it helpful. Thank you for watching another Barefoot Gaming video, and I will talk to you again really, really soon. See ya.